Hey hello everybody, it's Tron here, and I'm here once again to compare a Void item to its original counterpart in Risk of Rain 2. Today's topic is which is better, the-Wisp or the Voidsent Flame. Let's start by comparing the abilities of the items, as well as the numerical values of the damage both of these items can deal. Starting with the original, the-Wisp is a green item, and its ability is defined as: on killing an enemy, spawn a lava pillar in a 12 meter plus 2.4 meters per stack radius for 350% plus 280% per stack base damage. The item is very simple. When you kill an enemy, it explodes, and with more stacks, that explosion becomes larger and deals more damage. As with most Void items, the corrupted version of the-Wisp, Voidsent Flame, has a similar effect to the original counterpart. However, that effect has a completely different method of activation. The ability of Voidsent Flame is defined as: upon hitting an enemy at full health, spawn a lava pillar in a 12 meter plus 2.4 meters per stack radius for 260% plus 156% per stack base damage. Corrupts all will-o'-the-wisps. Now let's go over why will-o'-the-wisp is such a good item and when it's best used. The main use for this item is to clear out groups of weak monsters in one chain reaction of explosions, which are fairly powerful at 350% base damage at just one stack of the item. While the explosions usually don't deal much damage to bosses themselves, they do have a proc coefficient of 1.0, so a rapid chain of explosions on weaker targets can create proc chains, which will damage the stronger enemies and bosses around. Will-o'-the-Wisp synergizes well with all kinds of AoE damage items, as those are able to quickly kill off small enemies, activating Will-o'-the-Wisp, which in turn kills more enemies in an area around the killed one. But the most notable synergy goes to Will-o'-the-Wisp plus Forgive Me Please, as Forgive Me Please is an equipment that activates all of your on-kill effects every second for 8 seconds. That means that throwing the voodoo doll into a group of enemies lets you damage them with explosions without having to kill anybody, and also has the ability to create strong proc chains without it being necessary for you to even shoot at the enemies. This is especially useful on final bosses, where will-o'-the-wisp is otherwise useless, and in situations where you have to deal with a group of strong enemies with no weaker enemies around. All in all, will-o'-the-wisp provides AoE damage to the survivors that really need it, and with a proc coefficient of 1.0, it is capable of synergizing well with other items, and can become a stronger starting point for proc chains than most survivors' abilities. Now onto Voidsent Flame. This item is a corrupted version of will-o'-the-wisp, with two notable changes. It has less damage, and the method of its activation has been flipped on its head. Now to create an explosion you need to hit a full health opponent, instead of killing an enemy. This is a much easier and more consistent method of activation, as it does not rely on weak enemies being around. The increased reliability is balanced out with lower damage, as not to make Voidsent Flame just a better version of its original item. However, with a certain item we can fix that damage, and that item is the Crowbar. The Crowbar allows the player to deal 75% plus 75% per stack more damage when attacking an enemy above 90% health. This means that we can boost the power of Voidsent Flame far beyond that of will-o'-the-wisp with even one Crowbar, as its damage bonus brings one stack of Voidsent Flame to 455% base damage, if my calculations are correct. However, there is a catch to this. If Voidsent Flame is activated right after the target drops below 90% health, the Crowbar will no longer affect it. This means that to effectively use this combo, you have to give up the Crowbar buff on your attacks and to give it to Voidsent Flame. This is not great in characters with strong single hit damage abilities like the Loader, Artificer and Railgunner, unless you have an ungodly amount of Voidsent Flames. But that's only if we count single target damage. Voidsent Flame explosions should deal buff damage to the enemies around the original target, allowing for really good AoE. And even if you one-shot the enemy, the surrounding enemies will take 455% base damage, as long as they are at full health, making Voidsent Flame a better alternative to will-o'-the-wisp and crowd control at all times with even one Crowbar. Another way to use Voidsent Flame is quite unexpected, and it lies in using this item while running a Hellfire Tincture build. Weirdly enough, this item's explosion works when hitting allies, including yourself too. With a Hellfire Tincture, Voidsent Flame and a consistent method of healing, you can become a rapidly exploding nuke that destroys anything in its path. To get the best out of this build, you'll need a Hellfire Tincture, Jesters of the Drowned, Voidsent Flames, a source of healing, preferably Planula, any barrier, preferably Aegis, and a high tolerance for flashing images. Sadly, the Crowbar's effect doesn't seem to apply here, however that would be just too broken. So that brings me to the conclusion. Is Voidsent Flame just better than will-o'-the-wisp? In my opinion, yes, it is. I'd say there aren't many real scenarios where you won't pick up a Voidsent Flame. On paper its original version might be better, but in reality Voidsent Flame brings lots of versatility that the-Wisp doesn't have. So yeah, if you weren't sure on picking up Voidsent Flame before, I hope I made my point on it being better. As always, you can tell me that I'm wrong in the comments, and thank you for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. Take care and I'll see you around. Goodbye.